Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to Mock Draft 2 show, the Pewter Report mock draft for the Buccaneers. The 7-round 2026 version is out on PewterReport.com. Make sure you check that out. It is brought to you by Jorgensen Law P.A, the champions of the injured and disabled, with an office in St. Petersburg, Florida. No fees until they win. You got to love the confidence. So if you need legal representation for personal injury, Social Security, workers' comp, get a free case evaluation when you call 727-347-7733. That's 727-347-7733. You can visit Jorgensen Law PA on the web at jorgensenlawoffice.com. I'm your host for this episode of the Pewter Report Draft Show. Alongside me is Josh Queipo, Scott Reynolds, Josh Queipo. We're here to talk about our latest Bucs mock draft, which debuted just a couple hours ago on PewterReport.com. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Can't wait to get some comments on our draft picks and see how they liked it, or maybe they didn't like it. But I think we did pretty well on this one. I think that people are going to be kind of happy. I know that we had a lot of fans. There were fans of Sonny Styles, who was leading off our mock draft last month before the Senior Bowl, and that was a very popular pick with the Buccaneer fans. And why not? Who wouldn't want a 6'4", 240+ pound inside linebacker from Ohio State, replacing Servassier Dennis in the middle and being an absolute menace? But we have a new pole position guy, and this is a pass rusher, because we know Tampa Bay needs some pass rushers, Josh. So we picked Texas A&M's.
Ooh, yeah.
Casius, yeah, Texas. I'm getting ahead of myself here because I like the second round guy a lot too. But Texas A&M's edge rusher, Casius Howell, is the first round pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 15. And you know what? I've seen Casius Howell everywhere, Josh, from being a middle first rounder to a middle second rounder. And I think the combine is going to have a pretty good barometer on where he's going to go. I think he's going to test well athletically. There are going to be some critics out there that are not going to like the arm length when it comes in around 30 inches, which is ideally about 3 or 4 inches too short. But this guy's got some bend. He's got some agility. And what I like about him, he's got some serious production.
Yeah, that 100%. And I think it's hilarious. We went from an inside linebacker to an edge rusher, and in a lot of ways we found a smaller player.
Yeah.
Because he's about 5 pounds heavier than Sonny, but he's about 3 inches shorter, which I find absolutely hilarious. And it just goes to how freakish Sonny Styles is, especially for his position. But yeah, I think one of the things I absolutely love about working with you, Scott, is you oftentimes talk about us at Pewter Report, and a lot of times you talk about players in terms of what's their superpower.
Yeah.
Right. And with Casius Howell, you mentioned the agility, and his superpower is absolutely his ability to change direction mid rep. Yeah. Right. So he will threaten the edge, and you got a great still shot right there of him getting around the edge against Auburn there. But if a tackle oversets or gets too vertical in their set, right, they don't get to a 45.
Yep.
He can change direction on it. He can just plant that outside foot, move all of his weight inside, cross face, and then just find that lane on an inside rush and crash down on the quarterback. So, or he'll threaten inside, and then all of a sudden he's moving back outside. So, I haven't gotten through a ton of edge rushers yet, but of all the edge rushers I have seen so far, nobody has that type of change of direction, which to me is such a valuable skill for an edge rusher, because it allows you to threaten both ways. Tackles cannot rest on their laurels. They can't plan for you.
That's right.
And that makes him very dangerous. And if he can consistently threaten outside and change direction inside, it negates some of the issues with his arm length, because arm length becomes a lot less of an issue when you're winning inside.
Yeah, for sure. And what he's executing here is one of my absolute favorite pass rush moves Not many can do it and do it well, but it's a dip and rip. It's really where you take that inside shoulder and you literally dip it down under the tackle's reach to where he's literally, he can't get his hands on you. You can see here, the tackle's got the hands on the top part of his shoulder pads, right? And the next step here is going to be a dip below that. So this is going to be not a whiff, but it's not going to be a block by this offensive tackle. He's dipping down below because he has the ability and the agility to get down low and continue to bend that arc at full speed. And then he's going to come up. You see that left hand, he's going to come up and he's going to get rid of that left tackle's left hand with a rip and clear himself on a path to the quarterback. And sometimes the bigger the tackle, and this is what Marcus Bell from Miami, who's a highly rated offensive tackle, he's getting ready to do the same thing, right? You see that left hand come up and he's getting ready to dip down and get up underneath him. And so there, in instances like this, when you're not using like a long arm, he doesn't have long arms. That's not his move. But very few people can effectively, at full speed, while turning the corner, do a dip and rip. And I'm not saying that this guy is the next Derek Thomas, but I grew up in Kansas City and I watched a ton of Derek Thomas in his prime with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I don't think there's a better dipper and ripper in NFL history than Derek Thomas. And this guy reminds me of Derek Thomas in that respect. He's not Derek Thomas. Don't get it twisted. Derek was one of one. But the way that he can execute it is reminiscent of Derek Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about the needs that the Bucs have, we've waxed poetic about edge rusher being a primary need, right? That and linebacker. Far and away the two biggest needs for this team.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I really like about him, and this is something where you have won me over, and for our viewers, I think it's funny, like when you were introing us earlier, I was like, we are the dynamic duo. But then when I thought about it, I was like, we really aren't. It's not Batman and Robin. It's more Batman and Joker, if anybody were to see our text exchanges, because we go back and forth all the time. And it's one of the things I absolutely appreciate about working for you. Yeah. But one of the things you have won me over on is you have to find somebody who has a history of being able to finish.
Yeah.
And Howell has that. I think he ranked in like the 80th percentile, maybe even the 90th percentile in finishing rate. And what that means is his ability to convert pressures into sacks.
Yeah.
Which is, we've seen guys who can get pressures in Tampa Bay, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Hassan Reddick, but they couldn't finish. And to a lesser degree, Yaya Diaby, although he's done that a lot better. It was the 97th percentile in sack conversion rate. That is an elite ability to finish, even with his shorter arms.
Yeah.
So, and what there is a cost with Howell, though, right? So he is not an elite run defender.
Correct.
I wouldn't even say it's an above average part of his game. Right. He doesn't outside of getting sacks, he doesn't make a ton of plays in the run game. His run stop rate is extremely low. His tackle rate is extremely low. We know Todd Bowles wants complete players, right? Yeah. And there is a mantra among defensive coaches in the NFL and in college, up and down the football world. You have to earn the right to rush the passer, right? So you have to be able to fit the run. That, I think, is the big question mark and why there is such a huge spread on how you mentioned. First round, you look at his pass rush ability. That makes a ton of sense.
That's right.
But then when you start saying, is he a complete player? Can you keep him out there on first down? Can you keep him out there on second down? Can he hold up at the point of attack? That's where the questions arise. And that's why you have some people who think that he's more of a second rounder. But I will say there is an aspect of his game Todd Bowles will love. He can drop in the coverage. Yes, he's got the athleticism to work in space, and Texas A&M certainly used him in that regard. He had one of the higher coverage rates among edge rushers in college football. So when you look at that, like the body type certainly works for that versatility. There is a lot to like, but there are some red flags and some question marks there.
For sure. And I want to say it was against LSU, and I forget who the tight end was, but This was like a tight end wheel route down the right sideline. It was the right sideline for Howell, the left sideline for the LSU tight end. And he was stride for stride 20 yards down the field with the tight end. And then when the catch point was, the ball was right there, the tight end went up to go get it, and Howell broke up the pass in the end zone. I'm thinking, that's like a safety play. That's like a cornerback. That's not like an edge rusher. Certainly no edge rusher in Tampa could do that, right? But that's the type of athlete that he is. So I'm going to be curious to see how he tests. I don't care about the 40-yard dash. I want to see him with the shuttle, with the 3-cone drill. I want to see
the hoop drill.
Yeah, the hoop
drill is huge for edge rush.
I'm just saying that, like, the timed drills, right? The ones that have a time with it. But yeah, I think he could crush the hoop drill. He's got enough agility and lateral quickness and all that I think makes him special. I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, how this works in Tampa is you put him exclusively on the right side and you say, yeah, we love you, but you're going to the left side. You're going up against the right tackle and the tight end a lot, and we're going to have this guy hunt from the blind side of the quarterback because that's what he does best. If you go back to like Shaq Barrett's first season in Tampa Bay, Jason Pierre-Paul didn't even play for the first 6 games or so because he was injured in a car wreck, broke his neck. And you had Carl Nassib on the left side, Shaq Barrett on the right. And I want to say Shaq had like 9 sacks in the first 4 games or so. He was an absolute menace. The Carolina Panthers game, I think he had 3 sacks in that particular game, a forced fumble or 2. And that's kind of how I see Casius Howell being used, is attacking one-on-one the left tackle, winning with speed, winning with the crossover, winning with the dip and rip and those types of moves, and letting Yaya have to deal with the double team, the tight end and the tackle, because he's bigger at 270 plus pounds. He can anchor and do that. And if you have Casius Howell chasing the quarterback from the blind side right into Yaya Diaby, then Yaya is going to get his sacks too. But I mean, to me, I think that's how you would work him. Kind of like what Monty Kiffin did with Simeon Rice. Simeon, just kill that left tackle. They're not going to run so much to the left side because most teams are still right-handed when it comes to running the ball. And I think that's kind of how you might protect him in the pass game, or I should say in the run game.
Yeah, and I love how you presented that. And Carl Nassib, that bigger, and even JPP. And I think that's what the Bucs have been looking for since since 2020, really, because that's when, that was the last time JPP was super effective. Correct. And you look at those body types, JPP is, he's that bigger, powerful, I can run through your face, while Shaq is the guy who's winning. So I refer to him, you've got your condenser, your pocket condenser. That's the JPP, the Yaya type. And you complement him with someone who can win on the outside arc, a swooper type. And the reason why you want that, because if both players are playing condensed football and they're condensing at a short, clip, then the quarterback can just escape outside the backside, backside, which we've seen happen a lot over the last couple of years, right?
Yes.
And they just out leverage the defense because there's nobody protecting high side. So you get that swooper who can win high side. And now you've got a really great complement to each other. You're forcing the quarterback to step up. And who are they stepping up into? Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey, Elijah Roberts, and now you're really creating chaos. So I think if they are going to go pass rusher early in the draft, and when we think at some point they will, right? I hope that they are targeting a swooper type. Like that, I think needs to be a part of the evaluation.
Yeah, they already have a power guy in Yaya. They need a speed guy to be able to create some mismatches, whether it's against the left tackle, the right tackle, whatever, especially even some stunts inside, right, against guards. The other thing, and we'll kind of close the door here on Casius Howell, that I love about him is he brings the juice. This guy brings energy. He is an Energizer bunny. He is the juice man. He will get teams fired up, his teammates fired up. There's a clip of him, and we're not going to play it because we don't own the rights to it, but there's a clip of him when he destroyed the left tackle for LSU for a couple sacks. He got into space and literally was like barking like a dog. And I love that. This guy's a little bit crazy on the field. Off the field, not so much. And that's great considering what happened to James Pierce and all that. But I think this guy's character checks out pretty well. As you can see, he's a rocked up physical specimen, but he's kind of maxed out, right? He's not allergic to the weight room. He has enough power. He's strong. He's fast. He's physical. He will take the fight to the tackle. He's in attack mode. I like the mentality that he has. And you mentioned the production, Josh, and I think that's important too for edge rushers. He had 11 and a half sacks in the SEC last year, and he got it against some pretty big name competitions. He actually closed out the South Carolina game with a huge stop that ended South Carolina's comeback opportunity. So he's made some big plays in crunch time. But when you look at the total number of sacks, he started off his career at Bowling Green, had 2 sacks in 2022, then had 9.5, which shows you that he can kind of be a dominant pass rusher in, the MAC. Okay, great. That's great. Then he transfers to Texas A&M, and he's behind Nick Scorton, who was a second-round pick by Carolina, and Shamar Stewart. Say what you want, but he was a first-round pick by the Bengals. So he was kind of in that rotation, and during that, he had 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He had an interception, dropping into coverage, and a forced fumble. And then this next year, Scorton's gone in the NFL. So is Shamar Stewart. He's a full-time starter. 14 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, 6 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. And what I do like about him, something that Jason Light looks for is if you can't get to the quarterback, even with the pressure or a sack, can you still affect the passer? And this guy has 15 pass breakups. 15 as an edge rusher. 7 pass breakups in 2024. 6 pass breakups in 2025. Some of those happened in coverage. Some of those happened at the line of scrimmage. So he's getting up into the face of quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, that interception that happened against USC back in 2024, he batted the ball coming on a blitz, or not a blitz, but like an outside rush, batted the ball up in the air behind the line of scrimmage, then had the wherewithal to catch it, and it made a huge play. So Casius Howell, I think, checks a lot of boxes for Tampa Bay. Is he a complete player? Not yet. But you know what, Josh? Even if he's a designated pass rusher for his rookie season, that's not a bad guy to put out there on third downs. I'd rather see him than Chris Braswell or Anthony Nelson or whoever opposite Yaya Diaby.
Yeah, I think it is incumbent upon the Bucs to find juice at the edge position. How you come about it, there's a lot of different strategies. Yeah. This, I think, is an effective one. And if you can't make a big swing in the trade market, then I wouldn't be. And if Sonny Styles is not there at 15, I wouldn't mind this pick at all.
Yeah, I agree. When I said he was from Texas Tech, I was kind of letting the cat out of the bag because in the second round, this is my draft crush, and I think after the Senior Bowl,
has he returned any of your love letters?
Not yet, but I still have I have the video interviews that I've watched over and over again from the Senior Bowl.
For all of our viewers, if you've seen Eminem's video "Stan" and you know the story of that fan and really the words, that is Scott Reynolds with this next pick.
Jacob Rodriguez. Look at that mustache. My goodness. Good God almighty. Look at that cowboy hat. Folks, this guy right here, he is an absolute ranger at linebacker. I mean, he is everything.
So much all at once.
What's that?
That picture is so much all at once.
It is. He's got the roses. He's got the stash. He's got the cowboy hat. He's got the uniform. He's got the football. He's ready to play. That was senior
2
day,
different
of course.
sleeves.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the real deal, man, at linebacker. An absolute takeaway machine. When Todd Bowles said last year he wanted ball hawks, I mean, he might have been talking about J-Rod just a year early because all he does is take the ball away. He has a J-Rod punch. There was the peanut punch with Charles Tillman, the cornerback, legendary cornerback who forced a bajillion fumbles. This guy's done the same thing. He punches the ball out. True story. I went to go see my daughter Ellie at Kansas State, took my son Logan. We went to the Texas Tech Kansas State game. I knew the Wildcats were going to lose, but I was okay with it because really I was there on a scouting mission. I wanted to see Jacob Rodriguez in person. I wanted to see David Bailey and Romello Height, and I wanted to see Lee Hunter and Skylar Gill Howard. I wanted to see those Texas Tech Red Raiders from that defense, and boy, did they not disappoint. They beat the hell out of Kansas State. Romello Height had a forced fumble that was scooped and scored, and they got a defensive touchdown against my Wildcats. But Jacob Rodriguez punched the ball out twice in that game. Our two biggest playmakers, our two best offensive weapons, J. Rod just goes over there and punches the ball out, just like he's doing here against Iowa State. So this is a player that, to me, was as good as advertised going to Mobile. He was the star of the show. We'll talk about somebody that kind of the last practice might have taken the title from him, but
outshined him.
But I'm telling you, J-Rod was everything. You see him do a lot of pointing in pictures. Why? Because of the high football IQ. He's directing traffic. He knows exactly what's coming based upon the down, the distance, the formation. He studies film. He's cerebral. He drops in coverage. The guy is a takeaway ready to happen. I'm going to read off the numbers here for you. He was basically a 2-year starter, but even when he was getting his feet wet in 2023, he had 32 tackles, a tackle for loss, 2 pass breakups, an interception, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Okay, then he becomes a first-year starter in 2024 as a junior, 127 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 4 pass breakups, 3 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a defensive touchdown. What does he do for an encore? As a senior, All-American, 128 tackles. What do you have last year as a junior? 127. So what do you have this year? 128.
28. Yep.
That's consistency.
Consistent.
11 tackles for loss. What do you have the year before? 10.5. So he had 11 this year. That's consistency. He had 1 sack. He had 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, 7 forced fumbles to lead college football, 2 fumble recoveries, and another defensive touchdown. This guy is an absolute machine. He has a nose for the ball. He excels at working 2-gap systems. He is a seek and destroyer. He plays under control. There is just so much to love about him, including his badass Army Black Hawk helicopter pilot wife, Emma. Get this man to Tampa, please.
Well, then she needs to be transferred to McDill.
That's right.
So, yeah. So I've seen a couple comments saying, well, mocks have him in the 3rd round, right? And you can get him later.
Not anymore.
And I think one of the, well, I've still seen it, right? I think that those updates still haven't come. I think he is going to climb a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I've heard from 2 different NFL sources that he has moved into the 2nd round.
Right. And well, what I was going to say towards that, we've talked to a lot of people, we've gotten a lot of intel that this draft has a handful of premium players.
Yeah.
And then maybe from like 12 to 100, it's pick your flavor. Like,
that's right.
A guy who is 12 on one team's board, maybe 89 on another.
That's right.
Board.
That's exactly
a guy
right.
who's 85 on one team's board could be, 50. The Bucs are picking like 56, right? 50, something like that, on another team's board. It is that second tier is large, and it is 100% beauty in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So while I think it's important for fans to stop thinking about things so vertically, and think about things from a team perspective, who fits what defense. I'll give a perfect example using linebackers. Arvell Reese, for me, he's linebacker 3.
That's right.
But I put myself in the Bucs shoes, he'd be linebacker 1 based on the defensive style, right? Yep. Sonny Styles isn't perfectly tailor-made for Todd Bowles' defense, even though he's my absolute favorite player. So Jacob Rodriguez in the 2nd round, some people may say, well, that's a reach. Not really, because it's this big glob of players, and it's what's your team need, and then who do you like. Now, Rodriguez had a fantastic Senior Bowl. There are tons of things to love about his tape. I love that you wax poetic about the ability to create plays and take the ball away. Yeah, he's not perfect. All right. And there are some
Absolutely.
concerns, things that show up on tape for me as a sift and fine linebacker. He leaves a lot to be a good amount to be desired. A lot of times he'll end up getting walled off. He can't make his way over to where the ball carrier is. And you'll see a guy rip off an 8-yard run just because he can't move effortlessly across gaps to get there. So I think that that's one potential issue. He's lowered his missed tackle rate. 2 years ago, it was over 17%. Last year, it was 13.9%. You usually don't see missed tackle rates go down from moving from college to NFL. Usually they go up. So he's already right at that, close to that 15% range over the last 2 years. It's right around there. That could be an issue. Like there are some issues with the tackling there. He's not.
I wouldn't be surprised, Josh, to your point there. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't have like the ideal arm length either. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of people go, well, you look at the ball production, you hear about the great Senior Bowl. He's got coverage chops too. I don't think we've mentioned that, but there are really good coverage chops, which have helped him with all those interceptions. And you mentioned the pointing. He's a fantastic communicator. So, and that's one thing that NFL teams, really want from their linebackers. How well can you communicate? How well can you translate what you're seeing to everybody else, get them lined up, make sure they're in the right spot. So all of that's really great. But again, not a perfect prospect. And I've heard people say, well, why isn't he in the first round with all this buzz and hype? This would be why he's a day two.
He's not an uber athlete. He's not Sonny Styles. He's not Arvell Reese. He's, he may not even be Carson Schlesinger in terms of an athlete. But what he is he is an incredibly instinctive, high IQ football player with the nose for the ball in coverage, the nose for the ball in the run game. And you can blitz him and he'll get to the quarterback. You can drop him and he'll pick off passes. He is just an absolute dynamo in terms of ball production. And, I mean, obviously you don't want to be the guy that gives up a gap that misses a tackle on a 35-yard touchdown run, right? You don't want to be that guy. But would I sacrifice a tackle missed that picks up a first down, as you said, like an 8-yard run or something like that, for punching the ball out later on? Like that's kind of where you have to look at that. And it's not just a couple of takeaways here or there. In the last 2 years, he's had 10 forced fumbles. I mean, that's
significant.
Levante David, let's put it in perspective. He had 4 forced fumbles coming out of Nebraska. 4. Okay. This guy's got 10. Plus you throw in the fact 2 defensive touchdowns, 4 fumble recoveries, 6 sacks, 10 pass breakups, 5 interceptions in college. He really is a do-it-all type of linebacker that has just a tremendous feel for the game. And the football IQ kind of comes from the days where he was a high school quarterback, went to Virginia and was a quarterback, kind of used as like a Taysom Hill type because he wasn't the starting quarterback. But he understands how to play defense by knowing what's going on in the offense because he played that before in his youth. So to me, he is head and shoulders above Servassier Dennis. I think he could play middle linebacker. I think he could also play the Mo linebacker, that off ball weak side linebacker, the Levante David plays because of his coverage ability. He can break up passes on tight ends, running backs, pick off passes. He checks a lot of boxes for me, including the stash.
Yeah. I've seen some comments about him being a little bit undersized and not an uber athlete. I think we overestimate athleticism at linebacker. And this is coming from somebody who said they need to upgrade the athleticism from where it's been the last. I think there's a minimum threshold and he meets that threshold. He can run the seam. He can run the post. He can get to the flats. Like he's got enough athleticism to play at the NFL level. Like he meets that minimum level.
And he's 6'1", 233. He's not 223. He's 233.
And that's the thing. I think we sometimes get into this. We think of linebackers of old. You think of Hardy Nickerson, who I think was like 253, right?
No, so
he
was 235. Actually,
oh, really?
235.
Okay. I apologize. So,
but he just was a taller, taller stature. Yeah.
But even going back to that era of football, where linebackers were in the 240s, the 250s, that's not what the linebacker position is anymore. At 243, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles are going to be two of the biggest linebackers
That's right.
in this draft class. 233, I would say, is right around your 50th percentile for the modern day linebacker. When you start seeing that second digit be a 2, that's when you start to get worried. And we're going to get to that in just the next pick. But I think his size plays for the NFL, especially at Mike, and his athleticism meets the minimum requirement for the position. So
agreed. Listen, as great as Jacob Rodriguez was, and we saw him on Wednesday's practice, Josh, he had a forced fumble to start practice, and then he had an interception to end practice, right?
Yep.
I mean, Jacob Rodriguez was just an absolute dynamo in Mobile. And it wasn't like this next guy wasn't either. And as good of a day as J-Rod had on Wednesday, the day that Kyle Lewis had on Thursday, oh, man, showstopper. Yeah. And we looked at each other. We're watching Kyle Lewis just take over the Senior Bowl practice on Thursday. And we said, can you imagine if they took Jacob Rodriguez in the second round and Kyle Lewis maybe in the third round? Because I think he was a fourth rounder probably coming into Mobile and was the best coverage linebacker I've ever seen at the Senior Bowl. And I've been going to the Senior Bowl since 2005. He covers like a cornerback, like a safety. I can't recall how many interceptions he had in one-on-ones, which is incredibly hard to do.
Yep.
And in team, he was absolutely phenomenal. So for our third round pick, we just solved the Buccaneers linebacker problem with Jacob Rodriguez as the middle linebacker, and then that money backer, that Mo backer, Kyle Lewis, who is smaller, listed, and we'll see what the official combine numbers come in at, but 6 foot 224. And if that number scares you, well, there have been a couple of undersized linebackers in Tampa Bay's history. A guy named Derek Brooks, who was thought by some teams that he'd have to play safety at the next level. I think it worked out okay with Derek Brooks playing weak side linebacker in the NFL in Monty Kippen's scheme. And then this other guy they drafted in the second round, Levante David. I think he's had a pretty good career as an undersized linebacker too. But this play right here from Kyle Lewis, this is an interception where he's covering a wide receiver down the field, and he's picking off a pass about 20 to 25 yards downfield. And he also did this too against, was it Stanford that he had an interception?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Down the field. Yeah. I mean, he had a couple of interceptions. We're not talking about like at the line of scrimmage or stepping in front of a screen pass. No, these interceptions are coming down the field for Kyle Lewis. And he too is another ball hawk, but a ball hawking linebacker. And let me read a couple stats here, and I want you to react to this. A 2-year starter at Pittsburgh. In 2024, he was an All-American. 101 tackles, 15 and a half tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 4 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a defensive touchdown. Last year, 81 tackles. He missed a little bit of time with injury. 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. Josh, for Buccaneer fans that might be scarred watching Tampa Bay's linebackers fail in coverage, the fact that this guy has 6 interceptions and 6 pass breakups over the last 2 years, including a pick 6, it's got to be music to their ears.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that is, if Kyle Lewis is going to succeed at the NFL level, it is going to be because he is standard deviations better than the average linebacker when it comes to coverage. He has to be a complete value add in that area. And I think he could do it, right? Like, I want to go back to what you had talked about, those one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl, because it was so special, right?
Yeah.
This is a drill designed to make linebackers fail. Right. It is the running back releases from the backfield. There's nobody else out there, right? Yeah. It's just the two of them.
There's no safety help. Nothing. There's no corner, on the sidelines. Nothing. It's one-on-one. It is advantage offense from the get-go.
Yep. Running back has a 3-way go. He can break inside, he can break outside, or he can go vertical. And the linebacker has no clue what it's going to be. And he lost 1 rep in 3 days, if I remember correctly. 1. Yeah. And they get 5 or 6 a day. And not only that, he had a pass breakup. He had a pick on the first day. He had, I want to say, 2 more picks on the third day. Yeah. Like in drills where you're just not supposed to be near the ball.
Right.
And he was absolutely dominant. He was
Yeah.
on the back's hip pocket every single time.
Yeah.
And it was special. And you look at his zone chops are great. He's a former safety. Is he a former? I think he was, right? I can't remember.
He might have been recruited as a safety.
Yeah,
but
he's got the build for it, right?
He does, yeah.
And he can run with tight ends. He can run with the most athletic backs out there. He's got the zone awareness. The pick you were talking about against West Virginia, he just knew where the ball was going.
That's right.
Like, he abandoned his assignment and
he plays it like a defensive back.
Yeah, just bolted for the flat and jumped in front of the receiver. And so that is very special, and it is a quality most linebackers don't have. And what I think it does is it provides a very high floor that he can, at worst, be that overhang dime backer. You go back to 2024 when the Bucs tried to make KJ Britt their early down thumper and then have Servassier be, the late down coverage guy.
Yeah.
In theory, you could almost bring that forward to where Servassier is your early down thumper because he actually plays the run really well, right?
He does, yeah.
He's the exact opposite of what everybody thought he was going to be.
Right.
But he does bring value in that regard.
And this guy's not Servassier Dennis.
No. I mean, he's much more athletic, much more fluid of an athlete. I get the no more pit. Don't scout the helmet, scout the player, right? So, and that's what makes him special. Now, we do need to talk about his ability to fit the run, right? So, I mean, he is smaller. He's going to get covered up. He's not going to be able to stack and shed. So how does he beat that? Like, it's going to be his athleticism. Can he get off blocks using eye discipline, right? Where it looks like he's moving to the right and then he just, he uses his athleticism, his agility, his fluidity to get around blockers, beat guys.
And Levante David's made a career of doing that.
Right. So there are ways that he could be that. And because he has a unique and special trait, he's somebody I'm willing to make a bet on, knowing that it's either going to be a home run or a 3-pitch strikeout. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And the thing is the coverage problems now are over. If you have Jacob Rodriguez and you've got Kyle Lewis, you probably have a chance for a pass breakup or an interception if you throw at these guys because they are absolute ball hawks. Like we said before, Todd Bowles wanted ball hawks last year. He got Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish on day 2. This is the day 2 version of that, but at the linebacker position, a position of immense need with only 2 linebackers under contract right now. That's Servassier Dennis, who's entering a contract year, his final year. Time flies. And then Nick Jackson, who was an undrafted free agent, spent most of the year on the practice squad, was called up a couple times, elevated to play on special teams. But that's it. Those 2 guys. You've got Levante David, who is a free agent. Not sure he's coming back at age 36. Anthony Walker, I think the team might pass on him. He's 31. And the same thing with Deion Jones, also 31. So
And one more thing. I love that you mentioned that Rodriguez can play Mike and then Kyle Lewis can play Mo. The other way that they complement each other, Rodriguez isn't a great pass rusher. He's not a fantastic part of the pass rush plan.
Yeah.
But Kyle Lewis,
he is.
Like, he's a heat-seeking missile when you send him forward. Like, he can be a part of a pass rush plan. You can use him in a lot of different ways. Are you going to bring him down onto the line and make him the 5th man on the line, as a heavy end? No, you're not going to do that. But you can send him from the 2nd level, and he time snaps really well. And then, very similar to how Devin White could really create havoc as that just fast bullet. You create a stunt and let him flow through that gap. He can really make that happen as a pass rusher. And that's important to Todd Bowles' scheme.
You're right. He is so fast, too, that even though he's 220 pounds, he will bowl over blocking backs because he just comes at full speed. He'll literally truck stick a blocking back and then still make a sack. So, I mean, so far for me, I love this draft. If the Buccaneers came away with these 3 players, I would be over the moon because your linebacker problem is solved. Now you have 3 linebackers, including Servassier Dennis, who might be the odd man out. He's your 3rd guy, or you rotate Servassier in, you platoon him with his pit brethren in Kyle Lewis, on strategic downs. and you have an extra edge rusher with speed in Casius Howell in the first round. So to me, day one, day two, this is kind of a home run for the Buccaneers. I don't know how we're going to top this in future drafts, Josh, but I like these picks almost as much as I like the folks over at Jorgensen Law Office, because we appreciate them sponsoring the mock draft show that we do, as well as our Pewter Report mock draft. If you haven't had a chance to see that, I'm going to drop it in the chat here in just a moment. Make sure that you read the content and let us know in our article comments what you think about our mock draft. But the folks over at Jorgensen Law, they would love to have your business because they're going to fight for you. They're the champions of the injured and disabled.
Welcome to Jorgensen Law P.A., where our family's legacy drives us to fight for your rights. Specializing in personal injury, workers' compensation, and Social Security, we're committed to winning for you. No fees unless we succeed. Trust in our family to help yours. Let's achieve justice together.
That's a winning strategy right there. Spencer and Grady Jorgensen, they are huge Tampa Bay fans, huge fans of Pewter Report. So make sure that if you are in the need for legal representation for personal injury, for Social Security or workers' comp, that you give them a call, because you're going to get a free case evaluation and no fees until they win. You love the confidence with the folks over in Jorgensen Law P.A. Find them on the web at jorgensenlawoffice.com or give them a call at 727-347-7733. So, Josh, we let off this show with Bucs get pass rushers, and well, they got one with Casius Howell. He is an edge rusher, an outside linebacker, and let's face it, Jacob Rodriguez and Kyle Lewis, they can blitz, so you can get more pass rush there, manufactured, of course. But there's another guy at the Senior Bowl we liked, and we liked him coming into the Senior Bowl because we had him in our first mock draft.
We did.
And he was a player that we had in the 5th round, but he showed up and showed out in Mobile. So much so that we said, he's probably helped himself too. Like J-Rod has gone maybe from the 3rd to the 2nd, and Kyle Lewis has gone from the 4th to the 3rd. We see this guy as a riser too. We're talking about Nadame Tucker, who was one of the standouts at the Senior Bowl. He is the edge rusher from Western Kentucky. Before that, he kind of toiled away at Houston for a couple of years. A little bit of a one-year wonder at Western Michigan. But this guy, he is in some respects very similar to Casius Howell, and that's not a bad thing, because Casius Howell brings an element, but even though he's been very, very durable during his college career, if he were to get hurt, then all of a sudden you wouldn't have that speed rusher, right? You wouldn't have that guy that brings some juice and some edge to the edge position. But this guy, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He has some real edge. He started off at junior college, wasn't highly recruited coming out, and then went to Houston, and very much kind of like how Casius Howell had to start his career at Bowling Green. The Dame Tucker had, some difficulty getting on the field at Houston. Maybe it was the coach's decision. Maybe he just didn't show enough. But at Western Kentucky, he absolutely balled out and had a massive season, finishing his senior year with 14.5 sacks, 21 tackles for losses, 4 forced fumbles, and 55 tackles. He is maybe the definition of a late bloomer, maybe the definition of a one-hit wonder, but I like what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and I love that you put late bloomer, because he will be 26 in June, right? And 1 year of production, had to transfer to a smaller program to get that production, and he's older, which is why he's still a day 3 pick, right? Yeah. But you look at the traits. Well, first of all, I'll talk about the physique, right? So 6'2", if I remember correctly. And I'm sorry, 6'3", 250 pounds. So he's rocked up there for that stature, and he's probably maxed out physically, especially given his age. But that's a size that'll play at the NFL. You don't need him to get bigger.
Right.
And he converts speed to power really well. He can win high side. So again, it's a second stab at swooper. And this is where I think Jason Light has proven to be a savvy drafter, is he'll double up on positions. because the draft is a crapshoot for
Right.
every GM, right? So sometimes your top guy that you pick at that position doesn't pan out. What's the best way to hedge against that? Grab
Pick
another
another
player
one.
at that position, right?
Yeah.
So where would San Francisco be if they hadn't taken Brock Purdy in the same draft that they took Trey Lance?
That's
You
right.
know, where would the Bucs be if they hadn't taken Carlton Davis after taking MJ Stewart?
That's
Right.
right.
Those are important lessons that I think Jason has
Yeah.
learned and continues to show. So we doubled up at linebacker, you increase your chances of finding a linebacker. You double up at edge, you can increase, and I love that you're doubling up at a swooper, right?
Yeah.
Again, talking about that complement to
Speed
Yaya.
rusher off the edge. Yeah.
Exactly. And with Howell, he's got that change of direction. With Nadame, he has the best way I can describe it. He has this ability to generate more power than you would think his frame is capable of.
Yeah.
And it's like he channels and pulls mass from the ground, if that makes sense. Like he is just pulling the earth up through his lower half, through his core, and letting it explode into some, poor offensive tackle.
I know.
And he'll do that if he feels like the front door's shut on him.
Yeah.
And he'll just go straight through the guy's face. So I love his athletic build. I love the way he generates power. I love his bend. I think, and again, it's a dart throw at this point for a fourth rounder. And he's probably not a guy who necessarily gets a second contract.
Right.
But you don't need your fourth rounder to get a second contract. You just want him to max out that first contract.
That's right. Yeah. And he's a juice guy too. He brings the same level of energy that Casius Howell does. He's got a chip on his shoulder, right? He's taken the long road to get to the NFL. He has an edge. I mean, this guy, he's an angry worker, as Rondé Barber would say. One thing too I forgot to mention about Kyle Lewis that I absolutely love is he was the leader at Pittsburgh in that defense. He was the hype man. He was the heart and soul of the Pittsburgh Panthers.
Brought that shark mentality.
Couple years. What's that?
He brought that shark mentality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he's the fire starter at Pitt. So you're getting in this draft, and not that J-Rod isn't, but J-Rod is more like the Derek Brooks type of leader where he kind of leads by example. He'll direct traffic, kind of like Levante David a little bit, right? He plays with an intensity, but he's not the yeller and screamer. Kyle Lewis, Casius Howell, and Nadame Tucker, those three guys, they're going to bring some juice to the Bucs defense, a defense that has been stale over the last year or two, if I'm being honest, right? A defense that I think has had too many people looking around the huddle saying, who's going to make the play? These are the kind of guys that are going to say, I'm going to make the friggin' play, right? And I think that's what this team needs is some take charge guys. There's all different kind of leaders. Levante David was a great leader in a Derek Brooks role. Antoine Winfield Jr. is a great leader, like in the John Lynch role, almost like that gentleman leader, right? This team needs a fire starter. They need a Warren Sapp type. They need a Jason Pierre-Paul and a Ndamukong Suh type. And I'm not sure these guys have like a Suh type of nastiness about them, but they have energy, they have juice, and they're going to light a fire in that huddle. They're going to light a fire on the sidelines. They're going to light a fire in practice. And you have to have that. You saw that on Super Bowl Sunday from multiple players on that Seattle defense, right? Devin Witherspoon was one of those guys. Julian Love was one of those guys. So Tampa Bay needs that type of player. And we found 3 out of the 4 in 2 edge rushers and 1 inside linebacker now. So is it time for offense yet, Josh, as we move into the 5th round of our mock draft?
I think it is. And
probably is.
Yeah, we're going to pick up the pace a little bit here as we get into day 3. But, the Bucs depth at offensive line was tested last year.
Yeah.
And so in the 5th round, we go and we try and help with that depth, and we pick up an offensive lineman and Boise State offensive tackle Cage Casey, elite name, Cage Casey. And that's Cage spelled Kage, not Cage.
Another Senior Bowl guy.
Another Senior Bowl guy. He's a junior. He played left tackle at Boise State. He's 6'5". He's 311 pounds. I think you and I both see him similarly. We listed him in our mock draft as an offensive lineman, not an offensive tackle.
Yep.
The foot speed, I think, lends itself to moving inside. I think it can be a little bit slow, especially in his pass sets. And that can get him a little bit in trouble against those athletic edge rushers with a lot of space.
Yeah.
But you put him inside, and that's where his grip strength and his overall power profile can play up. He's a people mover in the run game, especially when you get him into doubles. You put him on duo blocks, and even if you let him climb, he's not a bad athlete despite the foot speed going backwards. You put him forwards, I mean, he can hit a gear. He can get out there, and he will maul over some second and third level defenders. So
he plays with the great angle. Like his back is like it's like a ski slope where he literally has the right angle and would just drive block you 20 yards downfield. I mean, he's pretty impressive on the move going forward, as you're talking about in the run game.
Yeah. So you take guys who are marginal athletes at tackle, you move them inside, and you typically get good athletes. And again, the Bucs, they drafted Elijah Klein a couple years ago. They did everything they could to keep him off the field last year, despite injuries to Ben Bredesen, injuries to Cody Mauch. So it seems like that project isn't panning out. And so you want some extra dart throws there. Yeah. And I think Casey could be that dart throw where you say, can we develop him? And can we make him somebody who we feel comfortable if one of our starters goes down, that we can get by with a few games, and we don't have to go out and search for a Dan Feeney. We don't have to go out and search for a Mike Jordan.
Stop me if you've heard this before. Jason Light has taken left tackles and moved them inside to guard successfully.
Stop.
Think back like Ali Marpet, right? At Marpet College, going from left tackle there inside to guard, where he became a Pro Bowler. Alex Kappa at where did he play?
Was it Hobart? No,
it wasn't Sacramento State. It was College of the Redwoods or something. I don't think they have football anymore.
Yeah.
But he was a left tackle and moved him inside successfully to guard, helped the Buccaneers get to the Super Bowl. Wasn't able to play in it because he broke his leg in the first playoff game, but was a really good guard for this team. And then more recently, Cody Mauch, left tackle at North Dakota State. They moved him inside, and now he has been a very successful right guard. So that's kind of the plan here. Left tackle in college, you have enough athleticism, move inside, and maybe you develop him to be Ben Bredesen's eventual replacement, perhaps.
Yep, absolutely. And just to answer, because it was going to drive me insane, Alex Kappa went to California State Polytech and then Humboldt.
Humboldt, that's right.
Humboldt, which does, I believe, ended their football program. They might have brought it back. I can't remember, but
let's hope
at one point they stopped having.
We need more football, so hopefully they brought it back.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
So we're on day 3, and we've picked an offensive lineman here in the 5th round. We had Nadame Tucker in the 4th round. So we've gone 4 picks on offense. I'm sorry, on defense. 1 pick on offense. Let's go back to defense and just have some more fun, shall we?
You are in 7th heaven. You are a pig in mud.
Yep. Chris Mlelen from Missouri. And I've seen him, this guy all over the board. I've seen him as a late day 3 guy. I've seen him move up to day 2 because he did have a pretty good Senior Bowl week. I don't know that he's a 3rd rounder per se. Maybe he goes in the 4th round, but we have him in the 6th round. We'll see. We'll find out more at the combine where this guy's going to be slotted. A big defensive tackle, can probably step in right away and play some 4-eye, replace Logan Hall, probably ideally suited to be a nose tackle. So you also get some position flexibility there where he can step in and base defense and play maybe a dozen snaps or so as a 4-eye, as that 3rd defensive tackle, where you've got Kalijah Cansey, Abida Vea, and then maybe you stick him in, you rotate him with Elijah Roberts. But then you replace Greg Gaines with Chris Mlelen because he has nose tackle type size at 6'4", 323. And he's a good pass rusher. It's hard to find nose tackles that can get to the quarterback. He had 6 sacks last year at Missouri, 8 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks the year before that. So he's basically a 2-year starter. He came from Florida, where he played his first 2 seasons. But this is a player, Josh, that has, a total of 10 sacks in his 10 and a half sacks in his college career. That's pretty good production for a guy that really plays a lot of one technique nose.
Yeah, it's interesting. He picks his spots. It's almost like he looks for the opportunities where he knows he has a clear advantage, and every time he has that, he tends to just win that rep. So
Yeah.
If he's left one-on-one with an undersized center, he's going to just bowl him over. He's going to use his power. He's going to use his size, and he's just going to walk that dude back in the quarterback's lap. What I was thoroughly impressed with, he's got some wiggle to his hips.
Yeah.
He can, for a 323-pound man, he's got bend. Like, he is able to contort his hips and get onto the shoulder of lineman, and then use his power to just crumple in the shoulder, right? So, and that's what's helped him get those sacks. So you add that element. You have a version of a pocket compressor who occasionally can get free and bring in a sack himself. And you're also creating a better run disruptor, because when Vita Vea was off the field last year, Bucs run defense took a step back. And so that's because everybody after Vita who is getting playing time, they're undersized. Greg Haynes is undersized for a nose tackle, right? Yeah. So CJ Brewer is undersized. Like, he is not a nose tackle. Obviously, Logan Hall, not a nose tackle. Elijah Roberts, not a nose tackle. So, so they could use that second wave one technique to kind of set your front on.
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll go back to offense. So we're not sure what's going to happen with Cade Otton. Maybe they draft a tight end earlier than the 7th round if you're trying to fill Cade Otton's shoes. But one thing we liked about this particular tight end, who is our 7th round pick, which is Will Kesme, at the Senior Bowl, is the guy can block. But the tight end position has become a position of big wide receivers, right? Think Eli Stowers and some of those types. But this guy is that kind of traditional, tight end who can do inline blocking and then release and catch some passes. He is not the yards after catch kind of guy. Matter of fact, it might be a tie in the foot race between Payne Durham and Will Kesme. But if you're looking for a tight end that can do it all, you have another guy in Will Kesme that can inline block effectively. He plays with a mean streak, and then can go out and do a respectable job catching some passes, converting some of those into first downs. Probably a better receiver than Payne Durham. But this team does have Devin Culp. So if it's looking to create some mismatches at the tight end position, you have a receiving tight end that can do that. Kesme can also catch some token passes coming out of the flat. But this guy is a tough, physical, kind of a throwback, mean streak football player that I think Tampa Bay could use, especially if this team moves on from, say, a O'Keefe and or a Cade Otton.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about taking a flyer like this, is finding a very specific role. And this league is moving more to 12 personnel, 13 personnel. It's been highly documented over the last couple of years, more of a run first league. Zach Robinson used 12 personnel at one of the second highest rate, I think it was, in the NFL last year. Yeah. So you're looking for, and really what the unlock is you put bigger personnel on the field because you want the defense to match with base personnel.
Right.
And then you do run a little bit, but really it's to unlock the play action passing attack, which I think is important for Baker Mayfield in 2026. Yeah. And with Kesme, that's exactly what he would be able to provide. He would be able to, you don't have to put him out into a route. You can just leave him in on that play action as an extra pass blocker. You can use him in the run game as a lead blocker at the point of attack. You can use him on split flow and just let him attack some poor edge or a linebacker lined up on the line. And then every so often you let him run, just an over the ball route or a quick little mesh or something. He's going to pick up, 5 yards because he's going to catch the ball at 4 yards. Like, that's it. But it's potentially a successful play depending on your down and distance. So finding players late in the draft, because the hit rate that late in the draft is so low.
Yeah.
But you find somebody who can play a role. And with him, I think he could play two. You've got him as that, that third tight end, that O'Keefe role. The other thing that O'Keefe did really well that you could replace is I think he could be a good special teamer, right?
Yeah, I do
So
too.
now he's occupying two useful, very specific roles on your roster. That's how you maximize a 53-man roster.
That's a great point. And the other thing too is, you always have to kind of be one step ahead in your roster construction, right? So let's say they re-sign Cade Otton, which would be music to your ears, Josh. So Cade's back, gloves and all, right? For another year as the starting tight end. Well, Payne Durham is the number 2 tight end here. And let's say that they let O'Keefe go in free agency. So now you have Payne Durham, you've got O'Keefe, you've got Cade Otton, Payne Durham, and you have Devin Culp. Those are your 3 tight ends. You bring him in, and then you can let Payne Durham go in free agency the next year because you have another Payne Durham type of player in Will Kesme already on your roster with the year already in the system, learning behind Cade and Payne and Devin. And then you have him on a rookie contract where you can let Payne go in free agency because he's going to be commanding a little bit more money on his next contract. So that would be a sound strategy, I think. And, as you mentioned, you want any type of a hit in the 7th round. And I agree with you. I think you can play special teams as well as play tight end here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a runner. After the catch, no, that's not his role. But as a run blocker, yeah, he can get the job done.
Yep, exactly. So if that's the draft, if that's the Bucs draft, Scott, what grade are you giving it?
I'm pretty happy because we went to the Senior Bowl and we saw these players play in action. And I think everybody that we highlighted here shined in the practices. These were some players that really stood out, that helped themselves in Mobile. You went back and you watched the tape. I really didn't study Chris Mlelen, but he caught my eye. I went back and I watched some games. I watched the highlight reel. And he does have some developable traits, right? Some traits that you want to put in to the system. He's not going to step in and be a starter right away. But you kind of think about Elijah Roberts last year, right? How he was a developmental guy that I think the arrow's pointing up with in Tampa Bay as a day 3 pick. So he is another type of player. I love doubling up at edge rusher and getting 2 speed rushers. You have David Walker to throw in the mix. You have two more power players in Yaya Diaby and Anthony Nelson. So I love the mix of that room. You've got 2 inside linebackers that can do it all. They can blitz, they can cover for sure. They're good enough against the run. That helps your ability to find playmakers, starters, guys that can come in right away, that have a ton of production, that have a ton of starting ability, and some really good instincts. Both of those players, Rodriguez and Lewis, have that. And then you draft another developmental offensive line. You give him to Kevin Carberry, and maybe he is that guy that can be what Ben Chukwuma was this year for the Buccaneers, that swing tackle. Maybe this is a guy in Cage Casey that can be a guy that can step in at either guard position with Elijah Klein as your backup center.
Yep. No, I like it. I think it addresses a lot of needs. And what I love about this strategy is it gives you, again, best case scenario, you've got 4 defensive contributors. I think it also really raises the floor that you get at least 2.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So you take the Bucs defense from 2025 and you add at least 1 good linebacker and at least 1 upgraded edge.
Yeah.
You're moving in the right direction.
I agree. We have a question here from Sean Ray. With us taking Emeka last year after mocking Ezeraku all last year, could we switch it up and envision someone like Kenyon Sadiq, the Oregon tight end in round 1? Yeah, he's been a player that has been mocked to Tampa Bay in several of those mock drafts. I happen to like him. If you're looking for an instant starter, if Cade Otton does leave in free agency, there is a drop-off between Cade Otton and Payne Durham. As a tight end position, you lose a lot of receiving ability with that departure because, Payne is a good blocker. He is not a receiver, right? He's not that kind of guy. And if they don't fill Cade Otton's role in free agency, then they're going to have to fill that role in the draft. And, this team does have some needs on defense, but Kenyon Sadiq, I know people have nightmares about O.J. Howard, but this guy, he's different, man. And he is a good blocker. He's a tremendous receiver. He's a weapon. And it's another, like, pick your poison. Who are you going to cover? And the other thing too, Josh, is is if Mike Evans departs Tampa in free agency, and this team has to go with Chris Godwin Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan and Tez Johnson, I think it might make more sense to get a guy like Kenyon Sadiq in the first round if K-Dot departs. Do you take Kenyon Sadiq over Sonny Styles? No, you don't.
No.
But I think he could be in play if some of those impactful defensive players aren't there and you have to stick and pick at 15, or maybe you trade down a little bit and another defensive player you want might slip and Kenyon Sadiq is there. I think he is a plug-and-play starter, and that's what you want, whether it's on offense or defense, with your first-round pick.
Yeah, I full transparency, I haven't evaluated Sadiq at all, so I have zero personal opinions of him. I think if the Bucs were to let Cade go and not replace him in free agency, you almost have to take a tight end in the first round, because if you look at the success rate of tight ends year one outside of the first round as complete players,
yeah,
it's not there, right?
Yeah.
Like for all of the fanfare that Harold Fannin got this past year for Cleveland,
Yeah.
Harold Fannin wasn't an inline, can do everything
right,
tight end. He was a glorified slot receiver, right? And so Kyle Pitts in free agency, like obviously with Zach Robinson, everybody makes that link. Kyle Pitts doesn't really replace Cade Otton. Kyle Pitts eats into the snaps that you give Chris Godwin and Emeka Egbuka in the slot. So and this is why I've always been, such a big Cade Otton guy. He doesn't do anything at a very, very high level, but he does everything at a average to good level. And there aren't many guys who do that.
That's true.
Can Kenyon Sadiq be that guy? I honestly have no clue. Like, I have not watched any Oregon film. I don't watch much college football live during the season. So I have no clue.
He's a pretty special dude. I can't wait to get your take on him when you want.
All right. I will put him on the list for this week.
Yeah.
I'm excited to take a look, but if the Bucs don't address that in free agency, whether it be Cade or someone else who can do everything, then I think the odds that it's Sadiq go way up. So maybe he is in a future Pewter Report mock draft after we see what the Bucs do in free agency.
Yep, we've thought about that. We've talked about that, and we're going to stash a potential Kenyon Sadiq appearance in the first round to see what happens, because obviously if they re-sign Cade, they're not going to take a tight end in the first round. That would be bad value. One last question, Josh, before we end the podcast here. This one kind of caught my attention here. Social Mako asks, how much would it cost to move up to get Sonny Styles now? Assuming like Dallas at number 12, that's kind of been the place where he typically goes off the board in a lot of mock drafts. If he doesn't fall to Tampa at 15, that's usually the spot there. First of all, let me ask you this. How much would it take to move up to 10 or 11 to ensure that you might get Sonny Styles? And number two, in a year where Tampa Bay has so many needs, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and maybe they'll address a lot of them in free agency, we just don't know. But is it wise to give up draft ammo in a year where you have a lot of needs to expend capital to get up, even if it's for a star player like Sonny Styles? What are your thoughts?
I think Sonny's so special. I really do. The thing with Sonny is he's not a perfect fit for this defense, right? Maybe you pick him and say he would be a solid fit for this defense, but then, if Todd Bowles doesn't make it past 2026, we'd love to have him as a part of the next defense, right?
Yeah.
I really love him. So to answer the question, to move up from 15 to 11 using the traditional trade value chart that everybody still uses, which is not a very good measure of pick value, it would cost a third round pick. So the Bucs would have to give up. So you think about it this way. Would you give up Casius, Howell, and Kyle Lewis from this mock draft to get Sonny Styles? No, then you've got Sonny, you've got Jacob Rodriguez, but now your only edge rusher that you've really taken a bet on is a fourth rounder and Nadame Tucker. That's an interesting thought process. Again, I love Styles. He's the best linebacker I've evaluated since I've been doing this coming out of college. And I think he's such a high floor, a special ceiling. I heard a comp today and I thought it was really great. Azeez Al-Shaair from Houston, who has been fantastic. And I think that that's kind of your low end comp. And I honestly think he could be Fred Warner one day.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a dude. There's no doubt about it. And I think he's better than Arvell Reese. And that wouldn't surprise me if he actually goes first ahead of Arvell Reese on draft day, because this is kind of a, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder draft. And you might see that. So nobody saw Michael Penix getting drafted by the Falcons. There's always some surprises in the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is a surprise, if we see Sonny Styles actually get drafted ahead of Arvell Reese, because I think Sonny Styles is a more tried and true inside linebacker, and Reese is kind of a jack of all trades. To me, he is this year's Jalen Walker. Is he an edge rusher? Is he an inside linebacker? He's kind of played so many spots that he is not really a master of one spot. He can do a lot, and the versatility is a very important weapon in his arsenal. But I just like Sonny Styles as that Mike backer. They can just stack and shed, they can blitz, they can cover. He's the prototype of what you're looking for. And the size, the speed, the instincts, he doesn't miss tackles. I mean, there's just so much to like about Sonny Styles.
Yeah. He's number one on my board right now, and I don't think anybody's going to knock him off.
Yep. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in and for watching tonight's draft show presented by Jorgensen Law P.A. Carpe Diem says, too many needs. This mock is just about perfect for what the team needs. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that y'all like the mock. And again, we want to thank the folks over at Jorgensen Law P.A., the champions of the injured and disabled. If you need legal representation, please support the Pewter Report advertisers. These guys are big Tampa Bay fans, big Pewter Report fans. They'd love to hear from you. Grady and Spencer Jorgensen would love to take your call. 727-347-7733. Get a free case evaluation, no fees until they win. And you can visit them on the web at jorgensenlawoffice.com. And it's been a lot of fun. We're going to be heading to the NFL Scouting Combine in a couple weeks. We'll have our third mock draft in March. That will be after the Combine. And then we'll have two in April. We'll have one the first week of April, and then we'll have one on draft week, which will be the week of my birthday. I get a draft pick for my birthday this year, April 23rd. So in years past, I've had Tristan Wirfs and Cadillac Williams as birthday gifts to me. One was better than the other. I'll let you decide.
That was almost like a trick or treat type thing. I'm going to plug one more thing, Scott, before we get out of here.
Let's do it.
For those in the chat and watching this, if you can't get enough of Pewter Report's draft coverage, we have another draft-centered episode coming up on Sunday. It's going to be around noon. We're going to have Michael Plus from Real Bucs Talk as our guest drafter. And so we're going to do a live mock draft using the Pro Football Focus simulator. And that what's really great about those shows is, yes, we will have Plus. He will be acting as Jason Light, and we'll be his team of scouts. But that also means that you who join us live get to be a part of the draft room. You get to have a say in what some of those picks are. So we would love for you to join us for that episode noon on Sunday.
There you go. And it says, I missed the weekend draft. So much fun hanging with buddies all day. So there you go. You can do it Sunday around noon at Pewter Report TV. We'll have some promos for that to let you know exactly what time for sure. But thank you all for, again, watching the show tonight, listening to the show, and also for reading the mock draft on PewterReports.com. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat right here so everyone can read it if they have not, but you probably have, because we've gone with that at 5 o'clock, and now it's 8:40. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm dropping that in the chat right now. For Josh Queipo, I'm Scott Reynolds from Pewter Report, and we'll see you in probably about a month. We'll do our next mock draft after the NFL Scouting Combine, which will wrap up the first week of March. We'll have our Bucs battle plans too. We'll have more mock drafts in there. Each Pewter Reporter will get to do their own mock draft in our Bucs battle plan. That'll be the first week of March, prior to the start of free agency. So again, for Josh Queipo, I'm Scott Reynolds. Appreciate you watching tonight, and we'll be back in about a month for our next Pewter Report mock draft show. Out.